The security camera captured it all, Karen Morrison climbing over the fence at 2 a.m., her entitled smirk gleaming in the moonlight as she slipped into the pristine pool. But what she didn't know was that the water wasn't just crystal clear anymore. It was laced with something that would turn her world upside down, something that would make her the laughingstock of the entire neighborhood for days to come. By morning, she'd be trapped in a nightmare of her own making, her skin a brilliant, unmistakable blue, and the first thing Marcus Chen noticed when he pulled into his driveway at 6:47 a.m. was the wet footprints leading from his backyard gate to the street. He'd been working the night shift at the hospital, and exhaustion weighed heavy on his shoulders as he fumbled with his keys. The footprints were still damp, glistening in the early morning light like accusations. "What the hell?" he muttered, following the trail with his eyes. They led directly from his pool area to the sidewalk, where they abruptly stopped. Marcus had lived in Meadowbrook Heights for 3 years, and in those 3 years, he'd dealt with more neighborhood drama than he cared to remember. But this was different. This was a violation of the sanctuary he'd worked so hard to create. He dropped his medical bag by the front door and walked around to the backyard, his heart rate picking up with each step. The gate was closed. But not locked, he always locked it. Always. The pool area was pristine, the water crystal clear and undisturbed, but something felt wrong. The deck chairs were slightly askew, and there were wet spots on the concrete that hadn't been there when he left for work. "Son of a bitch," Marcus whispered, pulling out his phone to check the security cameras he'd installed last month. The app loaded slowly, his fingers tapping impatiently against the screen. The footage made his blood boil. At 2:17 a.m., a figure appeared at his fence, Karen Morrison, his neighbor from 3 houses down. She was wearing a white sundress and flip-flops, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun. Marcus watched in disbelief as she tested the gate, found it unlocked, and slipped inside like she owned the place. "You've got to be kidding me," he said aloud, fast-forwarding through the footage. Karen had helped herself to his pool for nearly an hour, floating on her back like she was at a resort, even using his pool noodles and drinking from a bottle of wine she'd brought with her. Marcus's hands shook as he saved the video. Karen Morrison, the same woman who'd filed 3 noise complaints against him for having friends over on weekends. The same woman who'd called the HOA about his lawn being a 1/4 inch too long. The same woman who'd made his life a living hell since the day he'd moved in. And now she'd trespassed on his property. But as Marcus watched the footage again, something else caught his attention. The timestamp showed Karen entering the pool around 2:30 a.m., right after the automatic chemical system had completed its weekly deep clean cycle. The system he'd had installed last month, the same system he'd specifically programmed to release a concentrated algae treatment every Tuesday night. The algae treatment that contained methylene blue. Marcus's jaw dropped as the pieces fell into place. The chemical was harmless to humans but would temporarily stain anything it came into contact with. He'd used it in his previous apartments. Pulled to trace leaks, and he remembered how it had turned everything a brilliant blue color for days. His phone buzzed with a text from his neighbor, Janet, who lived next door. "Have you seen Karen Morrison today? She looks different." Marcus grinned, a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation flooding through him. He quickly typed back. "Different how?" "Blue. Like, completely blue. She's been hiding in her house all morning, but I saw her through the window. Her skin is blue, Marcus." "What the hell happened?" Marcus looked at his pool, then at the security footage, then back at his phone. The automatic system had worked exactly as programmed. Karen had unknowingly taken a dip in water treated with methylene blue, and now she was paying the price for her trespassing. He called Janet. She answered on the first ring. "Marcus, thank God. You need to see this. Karen's been pacing around her house like a caged animal. She won't come outside, and when her husband tried to leave for work, she practically tackled him to keep him from opening the garage door." "Any idea how long the blue will last?" Marcus asked, trying to keep the amusement out of his voice. "I googled it. Methylene blue staining can last anywhere from 2 to 7 days, depending on the concentration and exposure time." Did you know this would happen?" Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. "I had no idea Karen would be in my pool last night, Janet. But I'm not exactly sorry about it either." "She was in your pool?" Without permission. Oh, it gets better. Marcus sent Janet the security footage. Watch this. 2 minutes later, Janet called back, her voice filled with barely contained laughter. Oh my God, Marcus. She just waltzed right in there like she owned the place. And the wine. She brought wine to your pool. Oh no. I'm debating whether to call the police or just enjoy the show. The show is just getting started. Her book club is supposed to meet at her house this afternoon, and she's been texting everyone trying to cancel. But Linda already told the whole neighborhood about the mysterious blue situation at Karen's house. People are starting to gather. Marcus looked out his window and saw what Janet meant. Small groups of neighbors were beginning to collect on the sidewalk near Karen's house, their phones out, whispering among themselves. The Meadowbrook Heights gossip network was in full swing. This is insane, Marcus said, but he was smiling. For 3 years, Karen had made his life miserable with her constant complaints, her entitled attitude, and her holier-than-thou approach to everything. She'd cost him hundreds of dollars in HOA fines, forced him to replace his fence twice, and even tried to get his dog taken away for excessive barking despite the fact that he didn't own a dog. His phone buzzed with another text, this one from an unknown number. This is Karen. We need to talk. Now. Marcus stared at the message, his pulse quickening. He'd been waiting for this moment for 3 years, the moment when Karen Morrison would finally have to face the consequences of her actions. He typed back, I'm sorry, who is this? Don't play games with me, Marcus. I know you did something to your pool. I know you knew I was going to use it. I have no idea what you're talking about. And how did you get my number? I got it from the HOA directory. And don't lie to me. I'm blue, Marcus. Blue. And it's not coming off. I've scrubbed my skin raw, and it's not coming off. Marcus walked to his window and looked toward Karen's house. The curtains were drawn tight, but he could see shadows moving behind them. The crowd of neighbors had grown larger, and someone had brought a folding chair. I'm sorry to hear about your situation, he typed. But I'm not sure why you're contacting me about it. Because you did this to me. You knew I used your pool sometimes, and you poisoned the water. Marcus's smile faded. The audacity of her statement hit him like a physical blow. She was actually admitting to repeatedly trespassing on his property and somehow trying to make him the villain. Let me get this straight, he typed. You're admitting to illegally entering my property and using my pool without permission, and you're blaming me for the consequences. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times before Karen responded, it's not illegal. We are neighbors. Actually, it's the definition of trespassing. I have it all on video. Video. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He walked to his kitchen and made a cup of coffee, letting Karen stew in her own anxiety. Outside, the crowd had grown to nearly 20 people, and he could see someone setting up what looked like a lawn chair with a cooler beside it. Finally, he typed, full security footage. Timestamped. Shows you entering my property at 2:17 a.m. and using my pool for 47 minutes. You can't use that. It's illegal to record someone without their consent. It's illegal to trespass on someone's property. My security cameras are clearly visible and properly disclosed. You chose to ignore them. Marcus's phone rang. Karen was calling him directly. Don't answer, he said to himself, but curiosity got the better of him. He picked up on the fourth ring. Marcus. Karen's voice was tight with panic and fury. We need to figure this out. I can't leave my house. I can't go to work. I can't live like this. Then maybe you shouldn't have been in my pool at 2 in the morning. Oh. I didn't think you'd mind. We are neighbors. It's just a pool. It's MY pool, Karen. On MY property. Behind MY locked gate. The gate wasn't locked. Yes, it was. I have footage of you opening it. There was a long pause. Marcus could hear Karen breathing heavily on the other end. How long, she asked finally. How long what? How long will I be blue? Marcus looked at his reflection in the kitchen window and saw his own smile. I honestly don't know, Karen. Could be days. Could be a week. Depends on how much you absorbed. You have to fix this. You have to make it go away. I don't have to do anything. You trespassed on my property and suffered the consequences of your own actions. I'll call the police. Please do. I'll be happy to show them the footage of you breaking into my backyard. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, what do you want? I want you to stop trespassing on my property. I want you to stop filing FREVO. By noon, the crowd outside Karen's house had grown to nearly 50 people. Someone had brought a popcorn machine. The Hendersons had set up a full canopy tent with folding chairs, and Mrs. Chen from the end of the block was selling bottled water from a cooler. What had started as neighborhood curiosity had evolved into a full-scale block party, one where Karen Morrison was the unwilling main attraction. Marcus stood on his front porch, watching the spectacle with a mixture of satisfaction and growing concern. His phone had been buzzing non-stop with calls from neighbors, friends, and even people from other subdivisions who'd heard about the Blue Karen situation. The story was spreading faster than he'd anticipated. Marcus. Janet jogged over from the crowd, her face flushed with excitement. Channel 7 News is here. They want to interview you about the pool situation. Marcus looked past Janet and saw a white van with a satellite dish parked at the end of the street. A young woman in a bright red blazer was speaking into a microphone, while a cameraman filmed Karen's house in the background. How did the news find out? Marcus asked, though he already suspected the answer. Tommy Henderson posted the security footage on TikTok. It's already got 200,000 views and counting. #BlueKaren is trending. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He what? The video of her climbing over your fence and using your pool. It's everywhere, Marcus. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Someone even made a remix of it with music. This was spiraling out of control. What had started as justified consequences for Karen's trespassing was becoming a viral sensation. Marcus pulled out his phone and saw 17 missed calls from unknown numbers, dozens of text messages, and notification after notification from social media apps he rarely used. Mr. Chen. The reporter in the red blazer was suddenly at his front gate, her cameraman in tow. I'm Ashley Martinez from Channel 7 News. Could we get a few minutes of your time to discuss the incident with your neighbor? Oh. I don't think that's a good idea, Marcus said, backing toward his front door. Sir, we understand that your neighbor was trespassing on your property. Can you tell us about the chemical that turned her blue? Marcus's phone rang. It was his boss at the hospital. I have to take this, he told the reporter, stepping inside and closing the door. Marcus, what the hell is going on? Dr. Patricia Williams's voice was sharp with concern. I've got 3 different people sending me videos of you and some blue woman. The hospital's main number is getting calls asking about you. It's a long story, Dr. Williams. My neighbor was trespassing in my pool and I don't care about the details. I care about the fact that you're all over social media right now, and the hospital is being dragged into it. People are calling you a hero, but others are saying you poisoned someone. I need you to fix this, Marcus. Now. The line went dead. Marcus sank into his couch, the weight of the situation finally hitting him. He'd wanted Karen to face consequences for her actions, but this was becoming a nightmare for everyone involved. His doorbell rang. Through the peephole, he could see 2 police officers standing on his porch. Mr. Chen. We'd like to speak with you about an incident involving your neighbor. Marcus opened the door, his hands trembling slightly. Officers. I can explain everything. Sir, we are here because we received a complaint about a possible assault. Mrs. Morrison claims you deliberately poisoned her water supply. That's not what happened, Marcus said quickly. She trespassed on my property. I have security footage, would like to see that footage, sir. And we'll need you to come down to the station to give a statement. As Marcus gathered his keys, and phone, he could hear the crowd outside growing louder. Someone was chanting "Blue Karen" in a sing-song voice, and he could hear laughter and applause. The news van had been joined by 2 more, and he could see drones hovering overhead. "This is insane," he muttered. Officer Rodriguez, the younger of the 2 policemen, nodded toward the crowd. "Social media's a hell of a thing, sir. We've had situations go viral before, but never quite like this." As they walked toward the police car, Marcus caught a glimpse of Karen's house. The curtains were still drawn, but he could see shadows moving frantically behind them. Her husband Steve's car was in the driveway, but the garage door remained closed. "Has she come outside at all?" Marcus asked. "Not since this morning," Officer Rodriguez replied. "We tried to speak with her, but she won't open the door. Says she's not coming out until the blue goes away." The ride to the police station was surreal. Marcus watched through the window as they passed 3 more news vans heading toward his neighborhood. His phone continued to buzz with calls and notifications, each one adding to his growing anxiety. At the station, Detective Sarah Kim led him to a small interview room. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mr. Chen, I want you to know that we've already reviewed your security footage with Mrs. Morrison. She's admitted to trespassing on your property multiple times over the past 2 months." Marcus felt a wave of relief. "So I'm not in trouble?" "That depends. Tell me about this chemical treatment in your pool." Marcus explained the automatic methylene blue treatment, how it was designed to prevent algae growth and was completely harmless to humans. He showed her the product specifications on his phone and the programming schedule for his pool's chemical system. "So you had no knowledge that Mrs. Morrison would be in your pool that night?" "None whatsoever. The system runs automatically every Tuesday at 2 a.m. I've been working night shifts and had no idea she was using my pool until I saw the footage this morning." Detective Kim made notes on her pad. "Mrs. Morrison is claiming that you deliberately set a trap for her. She says you knew about her pool usage and timed the chemical treatment accordingly." "That's impossible. I just found out about her trespassing this morning. Check my phone records, my work schedule. I've been pulling 12-hour shifts at the hospital all week." "We will. But I have to ask, are you planning to press charges against Mrs. Morrison for trespassing?" Marcus hesitated. 6 hours ago, he would have said yes without question. But now, with the media circus and the viral videos, he wasn't sure. Karen was trapped in her house, humiliated, and would likely face weeks of public ridicule. Wasn't that punishment enough? "Oh. I need to think about it." "Well, you should know that Mrs. Morrison is considering pressing charges against you for reckless endangerment. She's claiming emotional distress and potential health complications from the chemical exposure." "Health complications?" "It's methylene blue. It's used in medical procedures. It's completely safe." "I understand that. But her lawyer seems to think otherwise." Marcus's phone rang. It was Janet. "Marcus, you need to get back here. Something's happening at Karen's house." "What kind of something?" "Steve just came outside. He's yelling at the crowd, telling everyone to go home. But people are recording him and is getting more and more agitated. I think he might do something stupid." Through the phone, Marcus could hear shouting in the background. Detective Kim was watching him with interest. "I have to go," Marcus told her. "My neighbor's husband is having some kind of breakdown." "Mr. Chen, you're not under arrest, but I strongly advise you to stay away from the Morrison house. Let us handle this." But Marcus was already standing up. "Detective, I didn't want any of this to happen. I just wanted Karen to stop trespassing. Now it's turned into some kind of media circus and people are getting hurt. Social media has a way of amplifying situations beyond anyone's control," she said. "But Mr. Chen, you started this chain of events. You need to be prepared for the consequences." 20 minutes later, Marcus was back in his neighborhood, but he barely recognized it. The crowd had grown to over 100 people, news vans lined the street and police barriers had been set up to control the flow of traffic. Street vendors had arrived selling t-shirts with "Blue Karen" printed on them, and someone had set up a bouncy castle in the Hendersons' yard. "This is a nightmare," Marcus said to Janet as they watched the chaos from his front yard. "It gets worse," Janet replied. "Steve Morrison just got arrested." "What?" "He came outside about an hour ago, screaming at everyone to leave. When they wouldn't, he started throwing rocks at the news cameras. Then he tried to grab someone's phone and got into a fight with Tommy Henderson. The police had to tackle him." Marcus watched as Steve Morrison was led away in handcuffs, his face red with rage and humiliation. The crowd cheered as he was put into the police car, and Marcus felt sick to his stomach. "Where's Karen?" he asked. "Still inside." "But Marcus, there's something else. Her book club showed up." "What do you mean?" Janet pointed toward Karen's house. "Her book club was supposed to meet there today, remember? Well, they came. All 8 of them. And when they saw the crowd and the blue situation, they didn't leave. They are inside with her now." Marcus looked at the house and could see more shadows moving behind the curtains. Cars were parked in Karen's driveway that hadn't been there earlier. "This is getting out of hand," he said. "It's about to get worse. Look." Marcus followed Janet's gaze and saw a black SUV pulling up to the police barriers. The door opened and a man in an expensive suit stepped out, followed by a woman with a briefcase. "Lawyers," Janet said. "Karen's called in lawyers." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown. The lawsuit papers arrived at 6 a.m. the next morning, hand-delivered by a process server who had to navigate through the crowd of gawkers that had been camping outside Marcus's house all night. The legal document was thick, official, and devastating. In its scope, Karen Morrison was suing Marcus Chen for $2.3 million in damages. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, his hands shaking as he read through the claims: intentional infliction of emotional distress, reckless endangerment, assault with a chemical weapon, invasion of privacy, and something called digital harassment. Facilitation. The lawsuit painted him as a calculated predator who had deliberately set a trap for his innocent neighbor. "This is insane," he muttered, flipping to page 12 of the document. According to Karen's legal team, the methylene blue had caused her severe psychological trauma, social ostracization, and permanent damage to her reputation and career prospects. His doorbell rang. Through the peephole, he could see attorney Jennifer Walsh standing on his porch, her briefcase in hand and a confident smile on her face. "Mr. Chen, we need to talk." Marcus opened the door but didn't invite her in. "I haven't done anything wrong." "That's not what the evidence suggests," Walsh replied, pulling out a tablet and showing him a video. "This is your neighbor, Mrs. Morrison, yesterday afternoon. Does this look like someone who deserves what you've done to her?" The video showed Karen in her living room, blue-skinned and sobbing. She was wearing a long-sleeved shirt and pants, but her hands, face, and neck were still a vivid blue color. She looked broken, defeated. "I wake up every morning hoping it's a nightmare," Karen's voice came through the tablet speakers. "I can't go to work. I can't face my friends. My children are embarrassed to be seen with me. This man has destroyed my life because of a simple misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Marcus's voice rose. "She trespassed on my property multiple times." "Mrs. Morrison made an error in judgment," Walsh said smoothly. "But your response was cruel and disproportionate. You turned her into a viral laughingstock. You've made her the target of nationwide ridicule." "I didn't post anything online. I didn't make her go viral. But you provided the ammunition. You showed that security footage to your neighbors, knowing full well it would spread. You facilitated her humiliation." Marcus felt his anger rising. "She brought this on herself. She broke the law. And now you're going to pay for your vindictive response. Unless, of course, you'd like to settle this matter quietly." "What kind of settlement?" Walsh handed him a document. "Full payment of Mrs. Morrison's medical expenses, psychological counseling, and lost wages. A public apology admitting wrongdoing. And $500,000 in punitive damages." Marcus stared at the paper. $500,000. For what? For ruining her life, Mr. Chen. For turning her into a national joke. For making her afraid to leave her own home. She trespassed on my property. She made a mistake. You made a choice to destroy her. As Walsh spoke, Marcus could hear the crowd outside growing louder. Someone was playing music, and he could smell barbecue smoke. The chaos showed no signs of diminishing. I need to think about this, he said. You have 48 hours. After that, we go to court, and this gets much worse for you. After Walsh left, Marcus called his brother David in California. Jesus, Marcus, you're all over the news out here, David said. They are calling you the pool vigilante. Some people think you're a hero, but others are saying you're a monster. I'm not a monster. She was stealing from me. I know, but the optics are terrible. Have you seen the latest videos? Marcus hadn't. He'd been avoiding social media since the story exploded. There's one where she's crying and talking about how her kids are being bullied at school because of this. Another where her elderly mother is defending her. And Marcus, there's one where she's talking about suicide. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Suicide. She posted it on her Instagram last night. Said she can't live with the shame and humiliation. It's got 3 million views. Marcus immediately searched for Karen's Instagram account. The video was devastating. Karen, still blue-skinned, sitting in her darkened living room, mascara running down her cheeks. I never meant to hurt anyone, she said to the camera. I made a mistake, and now my life is over. My children won't talk to me. My husband is in jail. I've lost my job. I can't even go to the grocery store without people pointing and laughing. I don't know how to live like this. The comments section was a war zone. Thousands of people were either mocking her or expressing sympathy. Hashtag Blue Karen was trending alongside hashtag Justice for Karen and hashtag Pool Vigilante. Marcus's phone rang. It was Janet. Marcus, you need to see what's happening at Karen's house. He looked out his window and saw that the crowd had shifted. Where before there had been celebration and mockery, now there were people holding signs reading, "Leave Karen alone" and "Stop the cyberbullying." A group of women had formed a protective circle around Karen's front door. The narrative's changing, Janet said. People are starting to see her as a victim. That suicide video really shifted public opinion. She's not going to actually. She wouldn't. I don't know, Marcus. Steve's still in jail, her kids are staying with her sister, and she's been alone in that house for 2 days now. People are genuinely worried. Marcus hung up and walked to his backyard, staring at the pool that had started this entire mess. The water was crystal clear, innocent looking. He'd installed the chemical system to keep it clean, never imagining it would become a weapon. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Dr. Rebecca Martinez, Karen Morrison's therapist. She's in crisis. We need to talk. Marcus called the number immediately. Dr. Martinez, this is Marcus Chen. Is Karen okay? Mr. Chen, I'm calling because Karen has expressed suicidal ideation. She feels trapped, humiliated, and hopeless. The viral nature of this situation has created a level of trauma that's unprecedented in my practice. I never wanted her to get hurt. I just wanted her to stop trespassing. I understand that, but the situation has escalated beyond anyone's control. Karen feels like she's being punished far beyond what fits her crime. She's become a symbol of public shaming, and she can't handle it. What can I do? Help us de-escalate this situation. Make a public statement asking people to stop sharing the videos. Show some compassion. Marcus looked out at the crowd, then at his phone, then at the lawsuit papers on his kitchen table. Dr. Martinez, she's suing me for over $2 million. Her lawyer is claiming I deliberately set a trap for her. That's her legal team's strategy, not necessarily Karen's feelings. She's scared, Marcus. She's made some bad decisions, but she's still a human being. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his living room, staring at the wall. The situation had spiraled so far beyond his control that he wasn't sure how to fix it. Karen was talking about suicide, he was being sued for millions, and the entire neighborhood had become a circus. His doorbell rang again. This time it was Karen's teenage daughter, Emma. "Mr. Chen, I need to talk to you about my mom." Emma Morrison was 17, with her mother's blonde hair and her father's serious eyes. She looked exhausted and scared. "Emma, I'm so sorry about all this. I never meant for it to go this far." "I know you didn't. But Mr. Chen, my mom is really sick. Not just the blue thing, she's having a breakdown. She won't eat, she won't sleep, and she keeps talking about how she's ruined everything. The lawyer said she's suing me for millions of dollars. That's not her idea. That's my dad's lawyer. Mom doesn't want to sue you. She just wants this to stop." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. "What do you mean?" "She's embarrassed about what she did. She knows she was wrong to use your pool. But now it's gotten so big, and everyone's involved, and she doesn't know how to make it stop." "Emma, what do you want me to do?" "Talk to her. Please. She's in there alone, and she's scared. I think if you two could just talk to each other like normal people, maybe you could figure out how to end this." Marcus looked at the girl, then at the crowd outside, then at the lawsuit papers. "Your mom's lawyer said I have 48 hours to settle or go to court. Forget the lawyer. Talk to my mom." 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself standing at Karen's front door for the first time in 3 years. The crowd had been temporarily dispersed by police, but he could see people watching from windows and parked cars. Karen answered the door herself. She was still blue, though the color had faded slightly. She looked smaller than he remembered. Fragile and defeated. "Marcus," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." "Karen, I'm sorry too. I never wanted this to happen. Can we talk? Without the lawyers and the cameras and the crowds?" Marcus nodded and stepped inside. Karen's house was dark, the curtains drawn tight. It smelled like vanilla candles and sadness. "I know I was wrong," Karen said as they sat in her living room. "I knew I shouldn't have been using your pool. I was going through a rough patch with Steve, and your pool was so peaceful at night. It helped me think. Why didn't you just ask?" "I would have said yes. Because I was embarrassed. And because we've never gotten along. I thought you'd say no just to spite me. Karen, I never hated you. I just wanted you to respect my property." "I know. And I'm sorry. I really am. But Marcus, this has gotten so out of hand. The whole world is watching now, and I don't." The courthouse steps were a battlefield. On one side, protesters held signs reading "Justice for Marcus" and "Defend your castle." On the other, counter-protesters chanted "Stop bullying Karen" and "Blue Lives Matter," a slogan that had been co-opted and twisted beyond recognition. Between them, a line of police officers in riot gear maintained an uneasy peace. Marcus sat in the defendant's chair, his court-appointed lawyer whispering last-minute strategy in his ear. Across the aisle, Karen sat with attorney Walsh and a team of 3 other lawyers, her skin now a pale grey blue that makeup couldn't quite cover. She hadn't looked at him once since entering the courtroom. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Hendricks." The courtroom fell silent as Judge Hendricks, a stern woman in her 60s, took the bench. She surveyed the packed gallery with obvious displeasure. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to make something clear. This courtroom will not be turned into a circus. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed and held in contempt. This includes but is not limited to recording devices, outbursts, commentary, or any form of demonstration. Are we understood?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Mrs. Walsh, you may present your opening statement." Attorney Walsh stood, her expression grave. "Your Honor, we are here today because Marcus Chen deliberately and maliciously set a trap designed to humiliate and harm his neighbor. This was not an accident. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a calculated act of revenge that has destroyed my client's life. She gestured toward a large monitor that displayed before and after photos of Karen. Karen Morrison was a respected member of her community. She worked as a marketing coordinator for a local firm, volunteered at her children's school, and organized neighborhood charity drives. Today, she cannot leave her house without being recognized as Blue Karen. She has lost her job, her social standing, and her peace of mind. Marcus felt sick as Walsh continued, painting him as a monster who had deliberately poisoned his neighbor. The defendant will claim this was an accident, but the evidence tells a different story. Mr. Chen had multiple security cameras focused on his pool area. He had been planning to catch Mrs. Morrison for weeks. When he finally did, he chose to humiliate her rather than handle the matter privately or through proper legal channels. Marcus's lawyer, Robert Kim, stood for his opening statement. He was young, overworked, and clearly out of his depth. Your Honor, my client is a dedicated healthcare worker who simply wanted to protect his property. Mrs. Morrison trespassed on his land repeatedly over several months. The chemical treatment that caused her condition was part of a routine pool maintenance system that Mr. Chen had no control over. This was a tragic accident, not a deliberate attack. Judge Hendricks nodded. Mrs. Walsh, call your first witness. I call Dr. Rebecca Martinez to the stand. Karen's therapist took the witness stand, her expression professional but concerned. Walsh led her through Karen's psychological state since the incident. In my professional opinion, Dr. Martinez testified, Mrs. Morrison is suffering from severe depression, anxiety, and what could be classified as post-traumatic stress disorder. The viral nature of her humiliation has created a trauma response that I've rarely seen in my 20 years of practice. Can you describe her mental state when she first came to see you? She was actively suicidal. She felt trapped, hopeless, and believed her life was effectively over. The constant ridicule, the loss of her job, the separation from her husband, it created a perfect storm of psychological devastation. Marcus watched the jury's faces as Dr. Martinez spoke. Several were looking at him with obvious disgust. Has Mrs. Morrison's condition improved since seeking treatment? Marginally. She's no longer actively suicidal, but she remains severely depressed and agoraphobic. She hasn't left her house except for medical appointments in over a week. During cross-examination, Robert Kim tried to establish that Karen's psychological issues predated the pool incident, but Dr. Martinez deflected skillfully. While Mrs. Morrison may have had some underlying stresses in her marriage and work life, the viral humiliation event was clearly the precipitating factor for her current crisis. The next witness was Karen's former supervisor, Jennifer Walsh, no relation to the attorney who testified about Karen's job performance and subsequent firing. Karen was a model employee for 3 years, she said. But after the videos went viral, we started getting calls from clients asking if we employed Blue Karen. Some threatened to take their business elsewhere if we didn't fire her. We had no choice. What was the financial impact of terminating Mrs. Morrison? She was on track to earn approximately $65,000 this year. We also had to replace her with a temporary contractor at a higher rate, and we lost 2 major clients who associated our firm with the controversy. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that Karen's firing was due to her own actions, the trespassing that started the whole chain of events, but the judge sustained Walsh's objection. Then came the character witnesses. Karen's sister, tearful and angry. Her children's teachers, describing how the kids were being bullied at school. Her elderly mother, who spoke about how Karen had always been a good daughter who made one mistake. She's not Blue Karen, the old woman said firmly. She's my daughter, and she's a good person who got caught up in something bigger than herself. With each witness, Marcus felt the jury turning against him. The narrative Walsh was crafting was compelling, a good woman who made a minor mistake and was destroyed by a vindictive neighbor. But then something unexpected happened. I call Emma Morrison to the stand. Karen's daughter took the witness stand with obvious reluctance. She was pale and nervous, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. Emma, Walsh said gently, can you tell the court how this situation has affected your family? It's been really hard, Emma said quietly. The bullying at school, my dad being arrested, my mom not being able to work. How do you feel about Mr. Chen. Emma looked across the courtroom at Marcus, then at her mother, then back at Walsh. I think everyone made mistakes. Walsh's expression tightened. What do you mean? My mom shouldn't have been using Mr. Chen's pool without asking. That was wrong. But what happened to her afterward was wrong too. Emma, Walsh said carefully, do you believe Mr. Chen deliberately tried to hurt your mother? Emma was quiet. For a long moment. The courtroom held its breath. No, she said finally. I talked to him. He didn't know my mom was using his pool. He didn't plan for any of this to happen. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Karen's face went white. Emma, Walsh pressed, your mother is suffering from severe depression because of Mr. Chen's actions. My mother is suffering because everyone on the internet is mean, Emma interrupted, her voice growing stronger. Mr. Chen didn't post those videos. He didn't make the memes. He didn't call my mom names or send her death threats. Other people did that. Judge Hendricks banged her gavel as the courtroom erupted. Marcus stared at Emma in amazement. This 17-year-old girl had just torn apart the prosecution's case with simple honesty. Your Honor, Walsh said desperately, I'd like to redirect, no further questions, Emma said firmly, standing up. I'm done. As Emma left the witness stand, she looked directly at Marcus and mouthed, tell the truth. When it was Marcus's turn to testify, he told his story simply and honestly. He described years of Karen's complaints, the discovered trespassing, his anger and desire for consequences. He admitted showing the security footage to neighbors but maintained he never intended for it to go viral. Mr. Chen, Walsh said during cross-examination, you've admitted to being angry with Mrs. Morrison for years. Yes. You've admitted to wanting her to face consequences for her actions. Yes. And when you discovered her in your pool, you saw an opportunity for revenge. Marcus paused, thinking about Emma's words. I saw an opportunity for justice. But what happened afterward, that wasn't justice. That was a mob. But you facilitated that mob by sharing the footage. I shared it with my neighbors because I was angry and wanted them to know what she'd been doing. I didn't think about how it would spread. I didn't consider the consequences for Karen as a person, just Karen as the neighbor who'd been making my life difficult. So you admit you acted recklessly? I admit I acted angrily. I admit I didn't think about how my actions would affect her mental health or her family. I regret that deeply. But you don't regret exposing her trespassing? No. She was stealing. From me. She needed to stop. But the punishment didn't fit the crime, and I played a role in that. After Marcus stepped down, both sides presented their closing arguments. Walsh painted him as a vindictive monster who had ruined an innocent woman's life. Robert Kim argued that Marcus was a victim of his neighbor's criminal behavior who had been unfairly demonized. But the real drama came when Judge Hendricks announced a recess before deliberation. In the hallway, Marcus found himself face-to-face with Karen for the first time since their conversation in her living room. I'm sorry about Emma, she said quietly. She wasn't supposed to, she's just trying to be fair. She's a good kid. Karen. She gets that from you. I wanted to drop the lawsuit, Karen said. But Walsh says we are in too deep now. She says if I back down, it'll look like I was lying. AB. The neighborhood was finally quiet at 10 p.m. The news vans had departed, the protesters had gone home, and the circus that had consumed Meadowbrook Heights for 8 days was reduced to scattered debris and trampled grass. Marcus walked across the street to Karen's house, his footsteps echoing in the unusual silence. Karen answered the door before he could knock. Her skin had faded to a pale blue-gray, barely noticeable in the porch light. She looked exhausted but calmer than he'd seen her since this all began. Thank you for coming, she said simply. They sat in her living room, the same room where they'd made peace 3 days earlier, before the lawyers and the media circus had swallowed them whole. I fired Walsh this afternoon, Karen said without preamble. Actually, I fired all of them. Steve's lawyer too. Why? Because Emma was right. This whole thing spiraled out of control, and I let myself get caught up in it instead of just fixing what I'd broken. Marcus studied her face. What do you want to fix? Everything. Karen's voice was quiet but determined. I want to apologize properly. I want to pay you back for the pool chemicals and any damage my visits might have caused. I want to find a way to make this right. Karen, you don't owe me money. The pool system was automatic. I owe you more than money, Marcus. I owe you 3 years of apologies. I was a terrible neighbor long before the pool thing happened. Marcus was surprised by her directness. You weren't terrible. You were just a protective of your space. I was a control freak who made your life miserable because I was dealing with my own problems. Karen looked down at her blue-tinged hands. Steve and I have been having marriage problems for 2 years. Instead of dealing with that, I took it out on everyone around me. Especially you. Why me? Because you were new and you were different and you didn't automatically defer to the way things had always been done. That threatened me. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 3 years of conflict settling between them. I used your pool because it was the only place I felt peaceful, Karen continued. At night, when the neighborhood was quiet and I could pretend my life wasn't falling apart. It was wrong, and I knew it was wrong, but I was selfish. I would have said yes if you'd asked. I know. But asking would have meant admitting I needed help, and I wasn't ready for that. Marcus looked around the room, noticing details he'd never seen before. Family photos showing Karen laughing with her children. A bookshelf filled with romance novels and self-help books. A half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. Evidence of a normal life that had been turned upside down. What happens now? He asked. I don't know. I lost my job, Steve and I are probably getting divorced, and I'm internet famous for all the wrong reasons. Karen's laugh was bitter but not hopeless. But I figure I can't go anywhere but up from here. The blue is fading. Yeah, Dr. Martinez says it should be completely gone in another week or 2. Turns out methylene blue doesn't last as long as people thought. She looked at her hands. The embarrassment will take longer. People forget, Karen. The internet moves fast. Some people do. Others don't. I got a job interview next week at a marketing firm in the next county. The owner specifically said she wanted to meet Blue Karen because she admired how I handled the whole situation. How you handled it? Apparently, refusing to hide and trying to take responsibility for my mistakes is considered brave in some circles. Karen shrugged. Who knew? Marcus felt something shift in his understanding of the past week. You could have stayed hidden until the blue faded completely. I thought about it. But Emma convinced me that hiding would just make it worse. She said I needed to own what I did and try to make it right. Your daughter is pretty wise. She gets that from her father. The good parts of him, anyway. Karen's expression softened. She likes you, you know. She said you were the first adult who listened to her during this whole mess. She saved me in court today. She saved both of us. Walsh wanted to paint you as a monster, but Emma wouldn't let her. She kept saying that lying wouldn't fix anything. Marcus thought about the 17-year-old girl who had stood up in court and refused to let the adults around her twist the truth for their own purposes. What about Steve? He's staying with his brother while we figure things out. The arrest was a wake-up call for him. He realized that his anger was making everything worse. Karen paused. We are going to try counseling, but honestly, I think we've been over for a while. This just made it impossible to ignore. I'm sorry. Don't be. Some marriages don't survive stress, and ours was already fragile. Maybe it's better to face that honestly than to keep pretending. Marcus looked at Karen, really looked at her, and saw not the entitled neighbor who had made his life difficult, but a woman who had made mistakes and was trying to rebuild from the wreckage. I have an idea, he said suddenly. What? The restorative justice thing the judge ordered. What if we did something real with it? Like what? What if we started a neighborhood mediation program? Something to help people resolve conflicts before they spiral out of control like ours did. Karen considered this. You think people would listen to us? The neighbors who turned a trespassing issue into a national circus? I think people would listen precisely because of that. We are living proof of what happens when small problems become big ones. You'd want to work with me on that. I think we owe it to the neighborhood to try to fix what we broke. Karen was quiet for a long moment. Outside, Marcus could hear the distant sound of traffic on the main road, normal life continuing beyond the chaos they'd created. There's something else, Karen said finally. Something I need to tell you. What? The night I got blue, when I was in your pool. I wasn't just swimming. I was thinking about our whole stupid feud, and I was planning to come apologize to you the next day. Marcus stared at her. Seriously? I'd been building up the courage for weeks. I knew I was wrong about the pool, and I knew I'd been a terrible neighbor. I was going to come clean about everything and ask if we could start over. And then you turned blue. And then I turned blue, and I was so embarrassed and scared that I let Steve's lawyer convince me to fight instead of apologize. Marcus felt the final pieces of his anger dissolve. God, what a mess we made. The biggest mess in Meadowbrook Heights history. But we survived it. Yeah, Karen said, a genuine smile crossing her face for the first time in over a week. We did. Marcus stood up to leave, but Karen stopped him. Marcus. Tomorrow morning, when the neighborhood goes back to normal, would you like to have coffee? On my deck, like normal neighbors do. I'd like that. And maybe we could talk about that mediation program. I think it's a good idea. I think so too. As Marcus walked back to his house, he noticed that someone had cleaned up most of the debris from the week-long circus. The lawn chairs and coolers were gone, the protest signs had been collected, and the trampled grass was already beginning to recover. His phone, which had been buzzing constantly for days, was finally quiet. The story was moving on to other victims. Other scandals, other moments of viral outrage. Hashtag Blue Karen would eventually be replaced by the next hashtag, the next moment of public shaming, the next human being sacrificed to the internet's hunger for content. But here, in this quiet neighborhood, two people had found a way to move past their mistakes and build something better. Marcus's phone buzzed with one final message. It was from Emma, thank you for giving my mom a chance to be better. He typed back, thank you for giving me a chance to be better too. The next morning, Marcus woke up to the sound of his neighbor mowing her lawn. He looked out his window and saw Karen in her backyard, still faintly blue but no longer hiding. She waved when she saw him, and he waved back. Later, they sat on her deck drinking coffee and talking about small things, the weather, their jobs, their plans for the weekend. Normal neighbor conversations that felt revolutionary after everything they'd been through. You know what the strangest part is? Karen said as they watched the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. What? I finally got to use your pool legally. Marcus looked confused. The judge's restorative justice order includes joint community service, Karen explained with a grin. Guess who's been assigned to help maintain the neighborhood pool area for the next 6 months? Marcus laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had in weeks. So you're going to be in my backyard anyway. Every Saturday morning, bright and early. Hope you don't mind. I don't mind at all. As they sat there, former enemies turned unlikely allies, Marcus realized that justice had finally been served. Not the kind that comes from courtrooms or viral videos or public shaming, but the kind that comes from two people choosing to see each other as human beings worth forgiveness. The blue had faded, but the lessons remained. And in Meadowbrook Heights, the neighbors learned to talk to each other again.